Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Sal, great job. Welcome to another episode of Comic Character of the Week. This week, we are talking about none other than Peter Benjamin Parker, otherwise known as Spider-Man. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest with us tonight, none other than Lithograph Comics, Greg, right from Instagram, here live in the studio right now. Greg, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, very good.
Fantastic. It is
I
an
would say
honor.
amazing. I'm doing amazing.
You're doing spectacular. Anybody else?
Amazing, spectacular. Oh my gosh. I'd say
Sensational
probably
above.
superior. Let's go with superior tonight.
Superior.
Oh, like that. And webbed.
There you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have an awesome show in store for you tonight. You are going to learn everything you didn't know and already knew about Spider-Man and so much more. Before we get into that, let's go ahead and pay 30 seconds worth of bills real quick. Go ahead and find us on your favorite social media platforms. All you got to do is type in at the CODEX station, and that is where we will be. Gary, what do we want to do with all these socials?
Oh, man. Every host you see here on the CODEX station. And, I've just met our man up there. And by the cut of his jib, I think he has all the socials too. So here at the CODEX station, we have all the socials, and we would like nothing better than to give them to you.
There you go. At the CODEX station, ladies and gentlemen, where we're live streaming right now, please hit the like, share, subscribe, and or follow. That is the greatest way to help support a channel like this, so that way we can bring content like this to you all the time, every time. And also, ladies and gentlemen, after tonight's episode, your shirt is going to be soaked in sweat. It might even be torn, or you might have some webbing on there, some white goo. Exactly. You need merchandise. Head over to the codexstation.com for all your Codex needs. Get some merch, meet the team, and so much more. Once again, the codexstation.com. And Greg, please let everybody know where they can find you on Instagram.
The best way to find me, and really the main social I have, is Instagram. It's lithograph_comics.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Lithograph_comics. You will not be disappointed. Got two more things I want to mention before we dive into the origins that Dan has so lovingly prepared. First off, we have got a giveaway of our own that we're doing right now. Our very own Jamie has put up a copy of the A cover of Dick Tracy #1. Just came out a little bit ago during this live stream. And throughout the rest of the month, all you got to do is type in #giveaway right here in the chat. And Dan will be more than happy to throw those up on screen so that way we can see everybody that has entered. Once again, #giveaway, and that will bring you right into the giveaway for Dick Tracy #1. And don't forget, if you are a member of the Codex Station right here on YouTube, you are automatically entered into every giveaway we do now and in the future. And one more thing, Brandon from Mon Comics put out a video today doing his own giveaway, which you guys, I highly recommend you go check that out and enter into his giveaway also. The more comics you can win for free, the better. It's Mon Comics on YouTube, really easy to find. Go and check that out. He's got some stipulations though. #giveaway, bougie, absolutely. He's got some stipulations though. Not only do you have to subscribe to his channel, which we recommend. Mon Comics is a super friend of Codex, and his content is absolutely wonderful. He sat here with us, with you guys, doing talking about big giant man things.
Yes, we did.
And so much more. But there's another thing on there. There's a small YouTube channel called Lettuce Comics. And I watched a couple of his videos today. And guys, you need to go check that out. That's part of the giveaway. If he can get to 150 subscribers in 2 weeks, Brandon's going to throw in a 9.4 CBCS graded Hellboy comic. You'll have to watch Brandon's video to find out exactly what comic that is. And if you can get Lettuce Comics, if we as a group, as a community, can get Lettuce to 200 subscribers in 2 weeks, Brandon is going to throw in another thing too. And that is a custom framed Avengers Age of Ultron poster Go watch his video, check it out, see what that poster looks like. It is phenomenal. But
Wow.
let's do what we do as a community. Let's lift Lettuce Comics up. Let's make him see just how awesome we think he is.
Let us help
on
them.
YouTube.
Let us help Lettuce.
Yes, exactly. Let us help Lettuce. There you go. So Mon Comics, ladies and gentlemen, go check him out. Lettuce Comics on YouTube, go check him out. Lithograph_comics on Instagram to check out Greg's awesome content and so much more. Lettuce has some fun stuff. He absolutely does, Pam.
He's
a very
already
unique
topped
style.
150.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yep. I just checked it, 154.
Wow. And he's still got 2 weeks to go to get to 200.
Yeah.
Sounds like Brandon's giving away some stuff.
So
check out. It's some pretty cool stuff he's giving away.
Yeah, the call is out, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do what we do best and be awesome. So
And take Brandon's books.
And take Brandon's books, yes, and his poster.
And his plushie. And Man Thing plushie.
And his Man Thing plushie, absolutely.
Oh, he'll miss that.
He's only giving away because he's got 2 of them.
Oh, there you go. But all right, let's go ahead and dive right into what we are here for, and that is Spider-Man. Dan, the floor is yours. Why don't you go ahead and give us that awesome intro?
All right. Well, I mean, this is the stuff that most people know, but first appearance, Amazing Fantasy number 15.
Oh, I got it.
Back in July 1962, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. The only reason that Goodman let Stan Lee publish it was because they were canceling that series, and he's like, "Fine, put your Spider character in the last issue." And then it sold so well, he's like, "We need more of that. Give him his own book."
Yep.
I think everybody knows his origin at this point. It's it's between the cartoons and the comics and the movies and everything. It's pretty well known. Peter Parker gained his powers by being bitten from a radioactive spider. After trying to use his powers to gain wealth and fame, he decided to become a hero after a thief that he let escape because he didn't think he was responsible for doing anything to stop him because he wasn't being paid to. The thief then goes around and kills his uncle, and then he had the words echo in his head. Some of the most
Uncle Ben.
Yeah, some of the most famous, one of the most famous phrases in comic books: "With great power comes great responsibility." And so he dedicated himself to being a hero after that. And as far as his powers, super strength, agility, durability, enhanced senses, quick healing, the spider sense. He made the web shooters to shoot the webbing, and then it became organic at one point, and then he became, as you said, the face of Marvel Comics.
Yeah, the mascot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and go right into this. Greg, I want you to go ahead and start us off with how the character works best. What do you like about the character? What works best with him?
Well, this is pretty much a softball question because Spider-Man he's what makes him work best for me. He was everybody. It's Stan Lee created somebody who had problems. He got picked on at school. He didn't have any money. He wasn't any good with girls, at least at first. As we know he turned out pretty well in that department.
Right.
But,
Several times.
Yeah. But that's what made him so great. He was so relatable. And the other characters from other companies, Superman, Batman, all those guys, they always kind of have their niche, and you can kind of say, you can put yourself in their position from a fantasy standpoint of like, I want to be a rich billionaire. I want to be able to fly. I want to be able to do these things. But Spider-Man, you really, other than the superpowers, you really could put yourself in his shoes in most cases. And that's, to me, it's kind of a short and sweet answer, but that's why I think he works so well, as he's so relatable to the everyday person.
Okay. All right. Dan, you were on the first episode we did with Spider-Man. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think works best?
I'll parrot that, that he's the everyman, and that there is the distinct personality difference between Peter and Spider-Man, because when he goes out to be Spider-Man, it's not just that he's helping people. That's like his way of, that's his escape from the problems of his world, because no matter what he does, no matter how much good he does, life always seems to find a way to beat him down. And he puts on that mask and goes out there, and it's a completely different personality. It's the quips, it's the jokes, it's the the fun-loving attitude. It's
nothing beats web slinging through New York City.
Yeah.
On a snowy night.
And also, like you said, with the women, he works best when he's with Mary Jane.
Okay, we're going to have a point of contention. I am Team Felicia all the way.
Oh,
Well,
I'm just a big black cat. I don't dislike Mary Jane. I mean, but I don't like. I like Felicia a lot. She's mine. My pick.
all right.
well,
Dan, what do we got here? Wes says, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to feel bad for Peter ever. Look at all the women he's been with. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean,
Betty and Gwen and Mary Jane and Felicia for a little while.
yeah.
There was that one What If series where he was with Silver Sable.
Yeah, the Captain Marvel, he was with her too. Carol Danvers, they went out for a little while.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I'm not going to steamroll Gary's answer here in a second either. But I will say, since Felicia is being talked about, I love how they kind of at some point addressed that she was in love with Spider-Man and not really Peter.
Yeah.
Because I think that was a great way to handle
What was it?
their
There
relationship.
there was that one scene where they were getting ready to fool around, and he was like, do you want me to take the mask off? And she's like, silly boy, no, I'm not interested in who's underneath. I'm interested in Spider-Man.
I hear her Felicia was really great.
Oh my God.
What?
With that being said, Gary, why don't you go, man? This is your first time to really talk about Spider-Man on Comic Character of the Week, so let us know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to revisit this. Peter Parker has got a rain cloud over his head constantly. And that is why we do relate to him. Greg is absolutely right, because he is everybody. He's got problems. He's got an elderly aunt he's got to worry about all the time. And yeah, he has done good with the women. Now, I'm going to say, I am Team Mary Jane. I married a smoking hot redhead, so that's the camp that I am in, and I need to stay in. There's something special about them redheads, man. They're dangerous, they're crazy, and oh man, they're good. So anyway, that's a personal thing, but I do like him with Mary Jane, and I liked him in a stable relationship, that he had with her. It was a wonderful, loving relationship, and especially, just on the Mary Jane hand, the way they grew together after Gwen died was really tender and really special. So there is something special to how that relationship blossomed after Gwen's. Thank you, Bougie. Yeah, absolutely, brother. So there is something special about that. But Peter's always, the thing. I think the thing that makes him relatable to us too is, I'm sure all of us in our lives have something that we regret tremendously. And that guilt that makes Peter who he is, that he always has with him, is how he inadvertently caused his uncle's death by inaction. And he can never get that back. He can never make up for that act. And I think that makes him such a semi-tragic hero, because no matter how many good deeds he does, that's his, for want of a better term, that's his original sin, as a hero. And he is always, and it's part of what makes him so great, is that he is still striving to correct that mistake, even though he knows he never can, but he's always going to do his best so that he doesn't do that to someone else. So I think that's what makes him so human, and the pathos in that character is so poignant, and that's what I like, and it gives him a compassion for others. We're compassionate toward him, but the compassion that Peter and Spider-Man has toward others is really amazing. And you have to, when he's in the Spider-Man costume, you have to dig down a little bit with the quips and the things like that to get through, but you do get through it. I mean, when on the podcast, when we talked about the Punisher Warzone, where Spider-Man was so adamant the Avengers go after Castle. He's a serial killer. It's just that humanity that Peter had. How can we let this happen? I don't care if he's killing bad guys. How can we allow this to happen? And that's that's the heart and that's the soul of Peter Parker. And I think it's his heart and it's his soul, and that we can all relate on, and I think relate to, and I think that's what makes him a character that we all love so much and care about.
Right on. Yeah, I'll go ahead and round this out. Greg and Dan, like you said, and Gary, he is an incredibly relatable character. He is one of my favorite characters. Like, the top position rotates out between him and somebody else, but it's mostly Spider-Man. He's a very personal character to me because of the relatability, right? I was a teenager that was picked on, and that was the nerd in school, and that's what Peter Parker was, and the rain cloud over his head all the time, right? The original sin, letting his uncle pass, and all that stuff when he could have stopped it, and he's always been trying to correct that mistake ever since he started. With great power comes great responsibility. He, even through some of the most terrible writers that have written Spider-Man to some of the greatest in the industry, that we'll get to that. But even through all of that, from some of the greatest stories in comics history to some of the worst, this character has endured. He is the mascot of Marvel Comics. When you ask name a Marvel Comics character, one of the first characters to pop in is Spider-Man. Stan Lee started, and Steve Ditko started a character that will live on forever. I agree, needs to be with Mary Jane only because Mary Jane's alive. But Gwen Stacy was my choice for him. He loved her and still does. And the cool thing about Mary Jane is that she understood that, and she never tried to overpower that. She left that alone. And by doing that, in the way that it was written, they were able to grow as a couple, Peter and Mary Jane, and they made one of the greatest couples in comic book history. I mean, when you think about couples in comic books, you think Superman and Lois Lane, Spider-Man and Mary Jane, Gwen forever. There you go. Spider-Man.
I mean, I like him with. I'll agree too. I like him best with Mary Jane. I mean, the whole the Black Cat thing is interesting too, but there's a lot of superhero relationships. It's nice when you see a superhero, kind of civilian, relationship.
And the good thing about that too is like, Spider-Man eventually treated his relationship with Black Cat like what it was, right? It was not meant to be, but he knew
fun.
It was fun.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It was
exactly.
fun.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
But getting back to what makes him so great is he is the everyman. He's down on his luck. He can't rub two pennies together to save his life. He scrapes by on everything. You see him eating ramen noodles and hot dogs. And he lives in, wherever part of New York he's living at the time. And he is just one of the most relatable characters. And that's what I enjoy the most about him. Well, all right, let's go ahead and move on to some badass moments. Dan, let's go ahead and start with you. 3 badass moments that you have with Spider-Man.
All right. Well, since I was on the first one, for each one of these, I'm not going to extrapolate. I'm just going to say real quick, this is what my first 3 were. Move on. So, So my badass moments for the first episode was when he Amazing Spider-Man 229, 230 when he fights the Juggernaut. In the Ultimate Spider-Man book when he fights the Sinister Six right before he dies. And then Amazing Spider-Man 33 when he frees himself underneath all the junk and rubble so that he can save Aunt May.
Yeah.
So the ones I have for this time is Amazing Spider-Man 270 when he knocked out Fire Lord, when he's going, he's fighting with him, and he gets these, this building that was going to be demolished. He gets the construction guys, is like, all right, knock it down on him. Oh, well, that didn't work. Okay. And then there's another thing he tries, is like, okay, that didn't work. Like, well, let me try this. And he just beats the shit out of him. He just punches him, and just keeps punching him until he knocks him out. And this is Fire Lord. This is a guy with the power of Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
And he knocked the snot out of him.
Fire Lord had it coming too.
Yeah, well, Fire Lord,
dick. He was a
Fire
dick.
Lord can be kind of a dick, especially early on. He mellowed out later, but yeah, early on. Yeah. The next one I got is Amazing Spider-Man 347. When he is on the island fighting Venom, and he realizes the only thing that they want, is me to be dead. And he finds this skull, and then he tricks Venom.
Spider-Man, I killed you well.
Yeah, and then he essentially tricks Venom into thinking that he's dead, swims off, and then Eddie Brock and Venom are left on the island like, oh, well, he's dead. What do you want to do? Like, oh, well, let's just chill here. We got food, we got sun, and then he swims away and leaves Venom there, completely done. So it's not just using his power, it's using his smarts too, knowing that, this is how I beat him. And who are we just speaking of?
Lettuce Comics, right on. Sorry, I'm late. Someone locked the door to the chat, and I'm not good at lock picking. Well, you're never late, always on time. Glad to have you here, man.
And then I had two more, so I'll just pick one of them, and maybe I'll drop the other one as a bonus if no one else picks it. My last one is again from Amazing Spider-Man 542. It was from the Back in Black storyline, which was a really good storyline. It was a good storyline, but it also started the downfall of Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. It's where Aunt May gets shot and Peter loses it, and this is when you see him really at his most brutal for the most extended period of time. He puts back on the black costume and he just runs rampant through the underworld to find out what happened, and pieces together it was Kingpin that hired it, the assassin, and he goes into prison where Kingpin is, and Kingpin, being him, he rules the prison, and they meet in the big spot between all the prison cells, and all the prisoners are there, and Kingpin thinks like, oh, I'm going to beat him, and Peter he goes like, oh, I'm not here to kill you, and he takes off the mask and he goes, I am, so they can see it's Peter, and Peter just beats the shit out of him, and because Kingpin was always written for years of like being able to stand up to some of these guys, and really it's like, no, he's a big fat guy that he's like an offensive lineman for an NFL team. Like, he's big and strong, but he's not superhuman. And this proved there's no way that he can stand up to it. And it wasn't even one of those fights where like, oh, he got in a good hit or two. Like, no, Spider-Man knocked the floor with him and then left him there, telling him, he's like, go ahead, kill me. He's like, oh, I will one day, but not now. And he basically just tells him, I embarrassed you. Everybody here saw that. They saw that me humiliate you and beat you, and they know it now, and they're going to tell people, and those people are going to tell people, and it's going to get out there that I did this to you, and one day I'm going to come back for you. And he just leaves them there broken and bloody, and Kingpin says something to the other inmates like, oh, what are you looking at? Help me. And they all just kind of ignore him and walk away. And I thought that was just amazing.
That's great. All right, Gary, badass moments. What do you got?
All right. So I kind of had some of the ones Dan had evidently mentioned the first time was when he beat the Juggernaut, which was how the hell did he beat the Juggernaut? A lot of cement was involved in that.
Right.
They did an episode of his 80s cartoon where he fought him too, I think
so.
Maybe so. I don't remember that. But and also the the Amazing Spider-Man 33, where he had all the metal from the Master Planner's, headquarters crash down on him. Water's rushing in. He's going to drown. He's got to save Aunt May, and where he's just totally he's at his wit's end, and he's exhausted, and he's beaten, and he's defeated, and then just he starts flashing back through the wonderful people in his life, and that he still have to have May, and he just wills himself to lift all that all that debris that is on top of him, pinning him down, and he gets out of there. It's a pretty iconic cover. It's a pretty iconic moment. I want to mention it, but
I got it hanging over here on the wall.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about a couple other moments. One is in ASM 122. The Goblin has killed Gwen, and Peter is murderous, and he's giving the Goblin a beatdown, and he could kill him, but he hangs back, he pulls back, and he decides, he regains his humanity, and he doesn't kill the Goblin. I think, considering what the Goblin had done to him, for him not to kill him, I think that was a tremendously courageous act, and human act. And it ended up, of course, if we know how that ends, the Goblin, made a fatal mistake on that issue, and a great turnaround on that. The other one is, the other one that I think is very courageous is in Civil War, when Peter, who has been so protective of his identity for so many reasons, believes so much in what Stark is going to do that he unmasks and in front of a national television audience. And I think that, considering how private, Peter Parker was, and how much he was loath to do that, the fact that he believed in something so much that, one of the biggest fears that he had of being exposed, that he went ahead and he revealed his identity to the world. I thought that was a lot of courage. Whether you thought he was doing the right thing or the wrong thing, it was just courageous. One of the most courageous acts he ever did.
I think collectively the comic community's jaws hit the floor when that issue came out.
I mean, I know personally, I didn't really dig it, and it not only came back to bite him in the ass, but as readers, it came back to bite us in the ass because of what it led to.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, but it told, sometimes when you're telling stories, they've been telling Spider-Man stories for a long time, and that gave us a different take on the character and a different story to tell. So I appreciated it. I didn't hate it like I hated the Clone Saga. I hated that. That was awful. The last thing I'm going to tell you, it's story time with Uncle Gary now. This is, it's not a badass moment, but it's a moment of just wonderful humanity. And before I read this, I would just want to make sure, did anybody pick Fantastic Four 588 as their recommended reading?
No.
Okay, I don't want to blow this. Okay. So this is Hickman's run on on FF. And what had happened recently was Johnny Storm had died. And he had died, and I know, but at the time, he's going to come back. But still, it's still
he died in the negative zone fighting the Annihilus army, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Spidey swinging through New York, he sees Franklin Richards.
Let's bring you front and center.
All right. Spidey's swinging through New York, and he sees Franklin Richards, Johnny's nephew, just really bummed out, really sad. And Spidey says, "Hello, Franklin. How long you been up here?" "I don't know, a while. It's quiet." He goes, "Sure, you mind if I hang out with you a bit?" Franklin says, "I guess not." And he just sits there, and Franklin says, "Uncle Johnny died." And Spidey says, "Yeah, I know. I'm very sorry about that. So how are you doing?" He goes, "Not so good. I can't sleep. I keep having bad thoughts." And Spidey says, "I know what you mean. What do you say we clear our heads? Did you eat lunch yet?" "I'm not really hungry." "Well, I'm starving for a hot dog, and I'm not going to eat one unless you do too. Don't make me beg." "Okay, all right, 2 dogs coming up." So a wonderful picture of them swinging to get hot dogs. And they're getting dogs, and of course Spidey says to Franklin, "Can I borrow $1?" So, anyway, what's really cute is they're eating the hot dogs, and he's got Franklin webbed up underneath the gargoyle, and he's just hanging there. And he says, "I know what I'm talking about. And I don't know if your mom or dad have told you this, Franklin, but when I was younger, not your age, older, but still too young, I lost my uncle as well. And we were very close like you and Johnny were. Did you know that?" Franklin says, "No, what happened?" He says, "He was killed in a robbery." And Franklin says, "I'm really sorry." And Spidey says, "Me too. Not a day goes by that I don't think about him. Not a single one. but it doesn't make me sad anymore. I mean, sure, I wish he was still here, and God, do I miss him. But after a while, the dark thoughts, the bad ones like you're having now, will fade away, and you'll spend most of your time thinking about how much fun you had together and how much you loved him. And Franklin says, how long before that happens? Spidey says, it takes a while. Oh, you got some ketchup on your face. Holds him up, hands him the button. Franklin says, thanks. And he says, can I tell you a secret, Spider-Man? And he's got a real forlorn look on his face. Can I tell you a secret, Spider-Man? Spidey says, of course you can. And he says, I think I could have stopped Uncle Johnny from dying. And Spidey says, well, I promise I'll keep it to myself. But can I tell you one? And he says, uh-huh. He goes, I know I could have stopped my uncle from dying. And Franklin says, really? He says, really? And Franklin says, well, why didn't you? He says, because I was young, because I didn't understand how important it is, every single decision we ever make. Because I had to learn that when you have gifts like ours, and for people that don't know, Franklin has powers. When you have gifts like ours, you don't think about yourself first. You think about how lucky you are to have them and how much other people need help. It's what my uncle would have wanted from me and what your Uncle Johnny would want from you. Do you understand? Franklin says, yeah. He goes, good. Now hop on. I need to get you home. And he said, hey, Spider-Man. And he said, yes. He goes, what was your uncle's name? Spidey says, it was Ben. That
is amazing.
That is beautiful. Now, that's not a badass moment, but that is a goddamn moment is what that is. And that is beautiful writing. Kudos. There you go, Boogie. I get my smoking. And I appreciate you all indulging me when I do this. It's just beautiful writing by Hickman, beautiful art by J. Scott Campbell on this, beautiful story. And, you know, irregardless of the fact that Johnny's back among the living now, this was still very poignant and dealing. And this to me is the essence of who Peter Parker is. Mm-hmm. When I reread this for tonight's show, fellas, to me, that's who Peter Parker is. Everything he told to Franklin, that is his raison d'etre, right? That is why he does what he does.
Yeah.
To try, and I just thought that was a beautiful human story that just shows his compassion and his caring and his love and his sense of guilt and responsibility and duty. And for me, not a badass moment, but damn, what a moment, right? So that's my moment. So thanks for story time.
You are very welcome, Gary. I don't know how in the hell I am going to be able to compare to that, but I'll try. God, you can pick anything in any of the numerous Spider-Man titles that are badass moments. But the first one that comes to mind is during Kraven's Last Hunt. When we'll go into this as we go. But Spider-Man has been beaten. Kraven has won. Spider-Man has been buried alive. And as Kraven is out doing all these things in the guise of Spider-Man, Peter Parker is under the earth. He's buried in a grave. And just that scene of him working his way out to he's not finished. This is not even going to bring him down. Everything else that he's been through, this is the moment he's in right now. And by God, he's going to climb out of this grave. He's going to dig himself out, and he's going to get back out and reclaim who he is and his identity. That was amazing. Seeing that in that storyline, and the way that the artwork was done was so wonderful. It was so powerful and passionate. God, it just sticks in my mind. And that is one of my tops. Another one.
That was Zeck and McLeod for that artwork.
Oh my God.
And remember, it ran across 3 titles, but it had J.M. DeMatteis and Zeck doing and McLeod doing the writing and the art across all 3 titles, because, you know, at the time, the editor, you know, when he wanted to do the storyline, it was going to be in one book. The editor told him, like, you're not going to have any, he's like, you're not going to have any impact if this is happening in one book and the other 2 books, it's just business as normal. It's like, if you want this to have the impact, it has to run across all 3 books. Like, this has to be the only Spider-Man story going.
Yeah,
and it would have elongated the time frame and made it less effective. But
exactly.
having that many stories come out so quickly made it more,
Yeah.
more powerful.
Well, and you even had that sub story going on, and we'll get into it more, guys. Don't worry. Of the Vermin storyline and
Yeah.
Spectacular that was going on, while the main stuff was taking place in Amazing and Web, and it was just wonderful. But that's one of them. Another one is everything Spider-Man did in the Maximum Carnage storyline. I mean, you have this rampaging, murderous, psychopathic serial killer of Carnage, Cletus Cassidy, cruising around doing God knows what to God knows who in New York City, holding the entire city in terror. And it's up to Spider-Man really at the end. I mean, Venom was a part of it, and Deathlock and Captain America and Black Cat and other characters.
Everybody.
Yeah, but
Iron Fist and
really it came down to Spider-Man and what he could have done to Carnage at the end of that versus the restraint that he held and finishing up the storyline and sending Carnage off to, what was it, Ravencroft, back to where it all started. Yeah, was badass in itself, because and that brings me to my last badass moment, the ability that Spider-Man holds back all the time. Every time he's out there. Yeah, there was one panel in Web of Spider-Man. I think it was where is Peter Parker or something like that. Like, and he was in a jail cell.
Yeah.
And this guy was messing around with him, and he's laying back and he's got his hand on the bar, and this guy's giving him shit. And Peter doesn't say a single word. He just looks at him and he goes like this and squeezes the bar and lets his hand off. And you see this bar just mangled. God, that was amazing. But the fact that he holds back all the time, every time, he constantly has to keep himself in check. And it was that line in Spider-Man No Way Home where Andrew Garfield, as Peter Parker, said, you know, I stopped pulling my punches. I got bitter and all of that stuff. That was like, man, I can relate to that so much. But yeah, those are my badass moments. I know, kind of vague, but we'll get into more of that stuff a little bit later. Greg, go ahead and round this out, man. What do you got? 3 badass moments for Spider-Man.
Well, I went from 3 different categories. So it's interesting because you mentioned that he pulls back all the time. And one of my badass moments is an issue, and I'll speak to it probably more later, where he doesn't hold back at all. And it's Spider-Man versus Wolverine when they go at it, because that is a real fight. It is in canon, and they are full strength. And it was one of the most badass fights. Again, I'll speak to that issue later because that's one of my recommended stories.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. But
yeah, go on, man.
That fight it was just really, really good. I mean, everything about that book is so underrated to me. I'll skip past that one and get into another category, which is using his brains. And Dan and I doubled up on one, and that was tricking Venom of the desert island, because he's like, this guy's never going to stop. I can't. He has to think I'm dead. And when he tricked him, it really showed how smart Peter is. And we know he's smart because he's a lab guy, you know, he's a scientist. But that, to me, really showed that you don't always have to swing for the fences to knock somebody out. You can do different things to solve the problems. And sometimes the diplomatic way, I guess, is the best way to do it. And
some people are smart but not clever. Peter is smart and clever.
That's true.
And that's clever. What he did to Venom was clever.
Yeah, that's true. Now, honestly, you could even call, the way he got him in the bell tower and took the suit off of him to begin with was pretty clever, and knowing that sound was his weakness.
Yeah, the Web of Spider-Man one. That was like when I said, I was like, oh, I got one more. I'll drop it if no one else does. That was the other one because it would have been easy for him to just let the suit take over, because the suit was kind of like, like giving him what he wanted, but he realized it wasn't good. So it would have been easy for him to just succumb to it. But he's like, no, this isn't right.
And that actually leads me into my third badass moment, which this is the category of humor. And it's when he realizes how bad the suit is in Amazing Spider-Man 258. He finally gets it off with the help of the Fantastic Four, and he starts fighting crime very briefly in a leftover Fantastic Four costume and a
Oh,
paper
yeah,
bag
with
on
the
his head.
Bombastic, yeah.
And that issue, it's funny because I tried to find that book for a long time and never could find it. And now I see it all the time. Now I have like 2 or 3 copies of it. But I love it's such a badass moment because he's just getting, I think Johnny Storm puts a kick me sign on his back and everything. And so he's like, he just starts to fight crime and he's got a paper bag on his head. And I'm like, this is Spider-Man to me. It's like
Yep.
the
The
guy cannot
Spider-Man
catch a break.
becoming
His own
man.
costume is against him, but
Yep.
he's going to
Spider-Man
find a way to
became New Orleans
persevere.
Saints fan.
Yeah.
Yep. The ain't. Yeah.
Wow. All right, Greg, that's awesome. That's
I
amazing.
love the humor. I love you adding the humor one in there. That is
Yeah,
great.
it's just I was trying to think, 3 badass moments. I'm like, well, he's such a good guy, but there's the this and that, and I thought
Well, for a good
you know,
guy, he's got a lot of badass moments.
he does,
Yeah.
and I thought he's really good at humor though. That's kind of one of
Yep.
his things. I was like, why not
Well,
pick 2 or 3 different categories? So
and I love this wide open perspective of all these different things that we all consider badass, going from specific moments in general to the characteristics of Peter Parker himself.
Yep.
That's wonderful. But now let's talk about some criticisms. This is the part I've been waiting for.
I wonder what it's gonna be.
Gary, let's go ahead and have you kick this one off, man. What are your critiques and criticisms regarding the character?
My
Spider-Man?
criticisms is when a mighty Marvel editor, Joe Quesada, decides that Spider-Man needs to date and play the field, that we can't have a married superhero in a wonderful relationship.
Yeah.
We've got to bust that up. Now, that being said, when we did the Mephisto episode, we all picked that because it was powerful and it was poignant. But why break our hearts? Why break our hearts, you asshole? You
And
know,
then
that,
continue to step on them.
yeah,
I know, man. Look, and I know that I know that on the panel here we don't always agree that Peter should be with Mary Jane, but I do believe that, and I love the fact that they had a wonderful relationship. And now whatever
and downs, it was a real relationship. They had ups
Yep.
and downs. They'd be apart. They'd realize they
Yep.
need to be together. They get back together. Like that's
Yeah.
it was an adult relationship.
And it was, but they loved each other so much, and I really appreciated that. And that character, he really grew into that relationship, and
Yeah.
I really thought just splitting them up because an editor decided that that's what he wanted to do, I thought that sucked. So that's my criticism.
Yeah.
And that's really it. He's just a wonderful character. I think he always will be. And when they had him, when he was the head of his own company and they had money and all that, that was great. You knew he was going to eventually lose it, so it was fun to see him. You see him ride the wave, and you knew he was going to go back down again. But my criticism is just the fact that they broke him and Mary Jane up for just what I thought was an arbitrary reason, and that's it.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm going to go now. Gary, I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to run with that. So there are a lot of weaknesses to the character that make him a great vessel for wonderful stories, right? Being down on his luck, the rain cloud over his head, always
the Charlie Brown of superheroes.
Exactly. Always
too trusting to people in his life.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that made him so wonderful was that he was somebody that we all could relate to. Greg, you even said that right in the beginning. And to take that away from us, Spider-Man is a very personal character to me, and to fuck around with him and the formula that makes him work makes me very upset. It is 110% the editors and the writers' faults when they write atrocious, abysmal, horrific storylines. And Zeb fucking Wells, I'm looking right at you, man. The stuff that's going on now is disastrous. I have quit reading Spider-Man because of that, and I won't touch it until he leaves, because this character is so personal to me. When I was going through my parents' divorce Spider-Man was there. When I was going through being severely bullied as a kid in school, as a teenager, and all of those other things, Spider-Man was there. When I got married, he was there. When I had my kids, he was there, and things of that nature. And to know that I have a character that I can look at and be like, I could be that guy. That's the guy I could be. They love blaming the readers. Yeah, they do, and they're wrong, because it's not the readers. You've scared me away from Zeb Wells Spider-Man. Don't ever read it, man. If you want to ever live a happy life, stay away from this.
Tim's mission is done today. He kept a person away from Zeb Wells.
but I mean, to take that away, Gary, like you said, to break our hearts, to not just break it, but to rip it right out of our chests and then stomp on it every single day afterwards is it's horrible. It's horrible. There's no reason for them to treat their mascot character like total dog shit, and they do it all the time. Why does Ultimate Spider-Man by Hickman do so well? Because it's what we as adults want to see in a Spider-Man comic. He's married, he has kids, he's lived a great life. Granted that, he didn't become Spider-Man until he was an adult, but shit, he's with the person we all want him to be with, or that he should be with, and their marriage is stronger than ever, and they're not making any attempts to ruin, destroy, belittle, or offend that in any way. And that's why it works so well. But Marvel editorial, the pieces of shit that they are, and the fucking writer that they have, refuse to give up what they're doing and destroying a major character that a lot of people love. What was it when Zeb Wells was like, before I quit reading Spider-Man, I was reading the letters page, and somebody had sent a letter in, and I'm surprised they printed it, where they were talking about, you always put in all the positive stuff, you never put in any of the negative stuff. Why is that? And Mr. Zeb fucking Wells responded, and he's like, why would I put anything negative in here? Of course I want to be happy. Of course I want to be praised. Of course I want to see how well I'm doing. Stop sugarcoating. Right on.
Yeah, pick a side, Tim. Pick a side. Come on, man.
And when he did that, I was like, fuck this. I'm done. And that's horrible. That is a complete offense to the people that buy those books. And yeah, I was rage buying. I will admit that. But I was hoping that they wouldn't destroy him, put his face in a puddle and drown him, and then put their foot on his neck and keep him there. And that's what they're fucking doing. And I hate the writers for Spider-Man. Spider-Man should be a roller coaster. He absolutely should be. There should be ups and downs and thrills and terror and all that stuff, but it should end, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm just going to interrupt you.
Yeah, go for it.
This is something I've always said. They're doing it to other characters too, to where they're deconstructing characters, but you can't have a deconstruction without a reconstruction at some point.
And they've been
they have beaten the crap out of Peter for so long.
Yeah,
and I mean there's character deconstruction and there's character assassination, and they're coming close to doing some big damage.
Well, they already did.
Some of new readers may have started with the Zeb Wells, or may have started, and they've had 4 years now, where new readers may have come on in the last 2 to 3 years, and they don't know anything but what we're seeing.
And they did that with Mary Jane. They character assassinated her.
Go ahead, Gary.
As you say, this jackpot crap is just awful.
That's exactly where I was going. I was going to say, and I don't know why they gave her powers.
We get one F-bomb, not 10 million. Well,
yeah. He was passionate about this one.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you.
And the whole thing about this run of Spider-Man, the first tagline was, "What did Peter do?" I still don't know what the hell Peter did.
I said the same thing.
Zero.
Yes. I just bought issue 50. Is it going to finally tell me what the hell Peter did? that started all this? I mean, it's just like, come
Oh,
on, man.
Gary, I can answer it for you. He landed in a field, buried his suit, and then took off, and that was it. Oh, and he tried to save the woman he fucking
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
in an alternate dimension where she had kids with a guy that they took away those kids and said, "Oh wait, they're not their kids. They're just aberrations.
It's so
They're
bizarre.
imaginary."
It's so
fucking
bizarre.
stupid.
And this
It's
jackpot hero is so terrible. You know, I hated DC had a character, Dial H for hero, and he dialed the little dial and he'd get powers. That's the same thing as this jackpot crap. It's stupid then, it's stupid now. So, you know,
sorry.
I just, hey, we you know, if it helps, none of us have dropped the F-bombs because we're saving them for Tim.
There you go. I've taken everybody's out of their pockets.
You've got at least 4.
F-bomb for the rest of the year. For the rest of the year, we can't use F-bombs.
This is the show, gentlemen. So,
well,
you know
I'll tell
what?
you, Mike.
You're right. Wait, Jamie's right. When you need to go back and edit it, and every F-bomb after the first one have a bleep. But you know how they like cover mouths too? You just need to have a little Spider-Man like spider symbol like pop up over your mouth for every one.
Oh,
wow.
You know, when Craig Ferguson had his late night show, when he would cuss it, he would say something, and then he'd put in tutti frutti, something like that.
Well, what was the one from Mr. Show where they would be like, "Mother, father, Chinese dentist,
son of a biscuit eater"? All right, I think I have gone on this long enough. If Zeb Wells, Bougie, you're getting me going again. If Zeb Wells can be mentioned, the F-bombs allowed numbers should go up.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll
all
have
right.
to make sure to tag Zeb Wells in this one.
I hope so. I hope he fucking watches this and he knows how much I hate that fucking man, and he can rot in hell in the pages of Mephisto versus Zeb Wells.
That is terrible. Oh my God, and he flipped him off too.
Greg, go ahead, man. What do you got?
Man.
Criticisms.
Yeah, follow that.
Greg, I don't know how you follow that, man.
So I was going to say, I have no criticisms. No.
Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on.
But no, my criticism would be, it's kind of what, well, you were well in line with mine, which is just beating the crap out of Peter.
Yeah.
And it, to me, the criticism is honestly of the writers and editors. It's, I mean, and there've been great ones, there've been bad ones. It's funny because you mentioned the comment section.
I imagine they all sit around a table stroking each other with glass, and they're like, "What can we do to screw Peter Parker's life today?" Well, I know. Go on. Sorry.
It's funny when you mention that one of the letters pages, you know, don't want to mention anything negative. There is one letter I remember very distinctly from McFarlane's Spider-Man run, as in the adjectiveless Spider-Man. Somebody wrote in, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but they said, "An artist you are, and a writer you certainly are not." And he answered it very fairly, and I can't remember his answer, but I was probably 14 or 13 when I read that. And I thought, that's really funny. So, but then I started really paying attention to his writing for some reason. I started, did I really like that or did I not like that, you know, and things like that. But no, my criticism is definitely the just relentless, just hammering of Peter's. It's just, I understand.
I hate getting my Peter hammered.
Oh my God!
That'll teach you to do carpentry naked, buddy. Stop
right? Hey, we got more viewers though, so we're good.
So getting getting your Peter hammered all the time is not always a good thing.
No.
So that, I mean, honestly, that's kind of short and sweet with my criticisms.
Right on. Okay. Well, if nobody else hates Zeb Wells as much as I do,
I didn't even get to go yet.
Dan didn't get to criticize.
Oh, sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to skip you over. Go ahead, buddy.
You went on such like a rage fill, or what was it they called on Archer? The what was it he called it on that when he would go on his rage fight? I don't remember. Yeah, I got 3 words. One more day. It was so bad that Michael Straczynski.
Heartburn thinking about it right now.
It was so bad. Michael Straczynski wanted his name taken off of it because they forced him to write it. And like you said, Tim, it was Joe Quesada. It was
Gary said that.
Quesada.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was Wolverine can't smoke cigars anymore because my dad got cancer. Well, is your dad Wolverine?
No.
Like, does
That's
your
a healing
dad
factor?
Like, you know. or the whole thing. Oh, I don't want, I don't like that they've had Spider-Man, grow up and become an adult over the past, few decades. So, yes, exactly. Over the past few decades, I want him to going back to being a single loser, living with Aunt May and all this, and that's what they did. And you had your flagship character, one of the most iconic characters in comics, make a literal deal with the devil. And why? Because his 1,000-year-old aunt got shot. I'm sorry.
That's another criticism right there.
But listen, she had a good run. She's 90 or whatever. Hey, you had a good run, Aunt May. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna be my hot redhead for the rest of my life. Yeah, sorry.
But exactly. And the whole way they wrote the story, wrote it was like, oh, Doctor Strange can't help her, and Reed Richards can't help her, and this. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Of course they can help her. She got shot with a bullet. It just
Doctor Strange fights Dormammu. He sure as hell could have helped.
But it was the whole thing of exactly you said, the one editor didn't like it, so he wanted to retard him back to where he was 30 years before, and then 20 years later, and it's still affecting the book, and we haven't they haven't fixed it. You talk about being a huge Spider-Man fan, Tim. I mean, I've
quit reading Spider-Man 3 different times.
When I was growing up, when I would get these back issues out of antique stores and stuff, it was just buying whatever struck, whatever covered jumped out at me. It'd be like Avengers, and it would be Justice League, and and it would be a lot of Spider-Man. And I distinctly remember, when I started reading new comics, getting them off the spinner rack, it was G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Amazing Spider-Man. And that's what I grew up. That was my guy. That's what I grew up reading, with the cartoons and, the old Nicholas Hammond live action show and, the Spider-Man toys. I read Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, the
Marvel Team Up.
Spider-Man, all the miniseries, Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. I read all the Spider-Man, everything Spider-Man that came out, I bought and I read it. When they did One More Day after that, I stopped. I stopped reading Spider-Man. It's been almost 20 years, and only around the past year have I started reading again. The only time I would get something is if it was when J.J. Abrams did that miniseries, it was out of continuity, or Peter David would do the Symbiote Spider-Man, miniseries that took place, back when he had the symbiote. But it was only out of continuity stuff, or stuff that took place in the past before they ruined him, that I would read. It was only when they launched the new, adjectiveless book that Dan Slott and Mark Bagley were doing that I picked it up, and I was like, all right, so I've been reading that, and the Amazing Spider-Man book, I only pick the issues up, like I've said before, if they have an artist I like on it, like Ed McGuinness or Todd Nauck. But yeah, they've ruined it, and and I see what they've done. Yeah, the jackpot thing is so stupid, and it's not even original, because there was another character, jackpot.
I think she's the third jackpot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
because there was the one in volume 2 that
there's one that comes out and dies in the same issue. I think she's the third.
Well, I know it makes sense for her, because it's back to the hey Tiger, you just hit the jackpot is why.
Yeah, but it's stupid. Not everyone, just like when they had Mary Jane as head of Stark's company, it's just stupid. It doesn't, it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing of not having Peter and Mary Jane together.
Bougie says Batman, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four were his beginnings as a youngster. He hasn't read Spider-Man since One More Day.
I didn't even give it a chance after that. The last issue, One More Day, when he did his deal with the devil. The next month, when I went in the shop, I picked up the new issue and I kind of flipped through it, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. Canceled all my Spider-Man pulls, because, like I said, I bought every book that came out. Canceled it, and here we are. It's almost 20 years later, and they've teased it a little bit, I know Dan Slott teased it some, kind of putting them back together, and You know,
Well,
his
they had the omit storyline one moment in time, but that never really changed anything.
yeah, and like, you know, he teased kind of, you know, the stuff with Mephisto, and you know that it was because, you know, his, you know, their daughter would be his greatest enemy or something, which that's stupid in and of itself too.
Right.
But they've teased it a little bit, but you know, you imagine it's editorial or Marvel themselves are like, no, you can't change it. And then now the fact that the fans clearly are speaking, they're like, this is, we don't want this, you know, we want you to fix it. And them just being like defiant over, it's like with, you know, like with your child, you know, when your child is proven, you know, they insist on something and you prove them to be wrong, but they're defiant in like, I'm gonna stick with this. It's like, okay, you know, like Gary said, there are some people like him, he's gonna buy, and I understand why he's gonna buy every issue because he's got every issue. So, you know, but for the majority of us that do not have every issue, you know, it's just, it's so annoying. I want to read Spider-Man. I want to enjoy Spider-Man again. Excuse me. And I just, and it just sucks that, you know, it just sucks that I really can't, and that you have to go to this alternate universe, Ultimate Spider-Man book to do it. And that's not even exactly what we're looking for, but it's the closest thing that we can get.
Well, here, I'll throw this last bit in before we move on to our sponsor for tonight's episode and then get into some good stuff. Wes says here, Tim just needs to admit Tim just needs to admit he's wrong and needs to get with the program. Bullshit.
It doesn't look like Zeb Wells. It doesn't look like there's any intention of getting him off the book. So,
but this is the last bit that we'll say, and then we'll move on. But like right at the end of reading it, up until the useless death of Ms. Marvel,
yeah, lasted all of a month.
Spider-Man, I'm with Team Tim and Dan, right on Bougie. Spider-Man was the bottom of my stack on purpose because I loathed reading that book, and I knew that if I read that book, I was not going to be happy, and I was going to be in a sour mood and all of that stuff. And it just got to the point to where it was like a toxic relationship. It's like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. The only reason I'm still here is because I love you as a character, and now you don't even love me back, and now you're treating me like shit. So yeah. But anyways, moving on.
Before you move on, one more thing I want to say. For the past, ever since One More Day, you know where I would go to get my Spidey, my Peter and Mary Jane fix? The daily comics section of the Washington Post, reading Spider-Man in there that Stan Lee did for years, and with Alex Savick, and Peter and Mary Jane were still perpetually together there. And even after Stan died and they weren't producing new strips, they were rerunning it until about 3 months ago when the Post finally removed it. But that's where I would go get my Peter and Mary Jane fix, is by reading the little comic strip and the the old Spider-Man strip that was being recycled.
Wes, I don't beat you out of hate. I beat you because you gave me permission. It's consensual, sir. But anyways, moving on. Ladies,
so it's not me too, it's me too.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, me as well. But yeah, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we could talk about how much we hate Zeb Wells all night long, but I don't want to do that because I want to have a great time.
But see, for me, it's not even Zeb Wells. It's everything that's come after that, because it's less Zeb Wells as much as it's Marvel itself having this, dictating this is what it's going to continue to be.
He is just our punching bag at the moment. One
time, Tim.
There you go. Right. All right. But ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about today's sponsor. Let's talk about somebody that doesn't hate you, but loves you so much. They have a comic for everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be Nirvana Comics. I want you to go ahead and head over to this website, nirvanacomicsknoxville.com. They are my local comic shop. They are my exclusive comic shop, and you have seen all of the things that they have given us to give to you, ladies and gentlemen, like this exclusive Duke #1 cover right here. How about this exclusive Cobra Commander right here? Mobius, if you are watching, good sir, we still have a copy of Feral #1 to send your way. These are the books that they give us to give you, and those are store exclusives, ladies and gentlemen. And you can find those right there on Nirvana Comics Knoxville.com. Grant and Jasmine, the owners, McKay, the store manager, and the rest of the Nirvana Comics team, they are amazing. They are wonderful. They are welcoming. And like I said, they have a comic for everybody. So head right on over there, NirvanaComicsKnoxville.com. And if you are in the Knoxville area, right there's that address. Go ahead and write that down. You can pause the video if you need to and take the time to write it. It'll be there. So head over there. And if you go there on Google that too.
Google, just look it up.
And if you're there on a Saturday in the afternoon, I'm always there and you can come in and say hello. So there you go. If you head over to Nirvana Comics, tell them Tim from Codex sent you. You'll get a nice, crisp high five. All right. Let's get into some top covers. What do you say, John?
There we go. Let's do that.
All right. Sal's not here tonight, but we do have Sal's stuff. So we're going to go ahead and start with him. All right, Sal, go ahead. Tell us about your covers. Well, that's wonderful. They're amazing. Okay, yeah. All right. So first off, we have here, Gary, what is that? Amazing Spider-Man number 97?
97, that would be the great John Romita. Art on that. Another great Goblin and Spidey fight.
Absolutely.
Got him in a headlock. Yep.
And I believe that is one of the issues that is outside of the Comics Code Authority, too. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It was one of the drug issues that they were doing, you know, so with Harry being strung out. So that was that was it. So they went without the code on that. So kudos for Stan and Marvel for making that stand.
Very powerful couple of issues, guys. If you haven't read that, go ahead, and check that out. Dan, let's go ahead and talk about that book in the center. That's Amazing Spider-Man number 328. Who's that done by?
I mean, that's that's the classic Todd McFarlane with Spider-Man punching Hulk in the nuts.
That is right. And that is also the last issue that McFarlane did as the regular series artist.
Hulk's got nards.
Before he went on to do the adjective list. Is that right?
Yep, he left to do that, and Eric Larson took over. Amazing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Greg, let's go ahead and talk about that last issue. That is an iconic cover. That's Amazing Spider-Man 375.
It's Mark Bagley, I believe.
Is that Bagley art?
Bagley art?
Is that Bagley art?
That is Bagley art. I remember that issue. That issue was great. That was the pinnacle, the final confrontation, as it says right there on the cover between those two. That was a big deal back then. I've got 375 and a 98. Great cover. Bagley is the man. Don't boast, Wes.
Wes is boasting.
I think my copy of that 375 actually has like a major spine tick, and it drives me insane.
Oh God!
Because it's a cardstock cover too, and it's like, how did I do this?
You know, I have that 375, but what's really cool is I have the 374 before it.
Ooh, wow. I think I might have the 376 after it, where Bagley didn't even do the interior artwork because he was doing Lethal Protector. Yeah. But all right, let's move on. We will go ahead and go with Dan. What do you got there, sir?
All right, so
nice.
So the first one, somehow I only ended up picking two covers for the first time we did this, which was Web of Spider-Man 1 and Spectacular Spider-Man 101, which Gary had as the cover of the day on Comic.
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked three new covers for this time, and I wanted to pick them from different eras. So I had issue 70 all the way on the end, for the old school Spider-Man. It's a fantastic cover, and I like how it shows him in like a classic kind of contorted Spider-Man pose on the wall, and then it's got the spotlight shining on him and the police coming after him because he was always running into all kinds of problems. Then we'll go all the way to the far right, the Web of Spider-Man 32.
Hey, Colossus.
Colossus,
you,
nice to see you, buddy.
All the way to Web of Spider-Man 32. It was Tim kind of talked about it a bit earlier.
Yeah, that was a badass moment.
Yeah, and it's just such a fantastic cover of him, coming out of his own grave.
The second time we've done Spidey Colossus. This is episode number 2.
Yeah. So I always like the black. As iconic as the red and the blue is, I always preferred the black costume. You have toyed with the idea of drawing like an homage cover to this, but instead of saying "Here lies Spider-Man," have it say like "Here lies Zeb Wells."
That would be wonderful.
Don't Spider-Man digging his way out of that grave. So, and then the middle one is is for the modern, because J. Scott Campbell has done so many Spider-Man covers and done so many great ones.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick a more modern cover, so I picked this one because it's a very dynamic pose where you got the perspective is really cool with the buildings coming up and him leaping down at you and shooting the web straight forward, and the sun behind him and the way the colors are. It's just a very classic, iconic type of Spider-Man pose.
I love how the fingers are not straight out and bent down. It looks more natural.
And I love how the logo is see-through.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that cover.
That's great.
So like I said, I wanted to pick something from each era of Spider-Man that was also different than the ones I picked the first time.
That is wonderful.
Good choices. Yeah.
All right, Greg, let's go ahead and go with you, good sir. Why don't you go ahead and go over these covers for us?
I'll start in the middle, and there's a million great Spider-Man covers. I tried to pick 3 that kind of meant something to me, and I wanted to stay. This is another point about kind of the moderns. I wanted to stay in the true pen and ink era before the digital really took over, because I love stuff from the modern cover guys like Art Germ and things like that, but there is something about that true pencils and pen and ink that you just can't beat. But that middle book, obviously, that was the book that just sucked me into comics like so many other kids. I was at Walmart. I saw what used to be called a pedigree set, which had like 5 or 6 books in one plastic container,
Had the numbering on them too. Like,
yes.
This is pack number 10,000.
Yep. Oh yeah. It's like a limited edition of one of 100 million.
Yeah.
But no, that Spider-Man, actually, when I bought it, that's how I was introduced to McFarlane, was the pedigree set. And it actually had the gold cover, which I believe is the second printing. But it didn't take long, and I tracked down the first printing, and I tracked down the cover of that particular one that you're seeing, which is the standard green webbing, I guess. The silver one's great and whatnot. I just really like that cover. And, that was my first experience with McFarlane. And, as cliche as it is to list that cover, it's the cultural significance is amazing. Even my nephew, who's 23, knows that cover and knows that book.
That is an iconic cover. It has been homaged so many times.
It really has.
Spider-Man covers would be a tough job. Lots of awesome choices, buddy. We are only halfway through.
And I'll go to the very right, and I know another McFarlane book, but this is, to me, is Venom, huge, villainous. I'm a graphic designer, so I love things with dynamic. I love things with some motion to it. I mean, everything from what I call the speed lines in the back.
Yeah.
It's just a great, it looks like you're flying toward that action, or it's flying towards you, one of the two.
Yeah.
I love the camera angle. It's just amazing. It's no pun intended, amazing. But to me, that is the quintessential Venom to me. I don't mind the giant tongue that kind of came later, but I kind of like the straight up that particular McFarlane version of Venom.
What did Larson say? Colossus says just got a 316 and a 9.8. Congratulations.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you.
Didn't Larson say that he tried to make the tongue longer and longer on purpose because
he probably did. Stupid. I think I did hear something about that.
Yeah.
And I will say this, I actually have a friend that sent in his ASM 316 and got a 9.9 back.
Oh.
And he expected a 9.8 and he got a 9.9. Now, I don't know what their criteria is for that, but it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
And then
you gotta slip a 50 in the pages of it.
Yeah.
Here's a grant, sir. Just
no kidding.
Disregard that one spine tick if you don't mind.
That's you wrap the $100 bill, you paper clip it over the spine tick. That's what you do.
That's right.
And so the final cover on the left that I picked, this was one that I didn't get this book until I had been collecting for a while.
Mm.
But the first time I saw it was probably in the early to mid 90s. And I think I was introduced to Hobgoblin through the cartoon, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
wow. Yeah.
Now I would have had a special guest appearance from him on those early Spider-Man issues because he's in a 2-issue, I think it's number like 6 and 7 with Ghost Rider guest starring.
Yes. That story's great on its own.
And that and the cartoon, I was like, this is crazy. And then I saw that cover, and I can't remember where I saw it. It may have been a comic shop, but I remember seeing that cover, thinking, "Oh, Spider-Man's in trouble." I had no idea that was his first appearance of Hobgoblin.
Wow.
And it was one of those books that just always stuck with me. And that's pretty much it. And I've got a really nice copy of that book that I bought raw and got a 9.6 out of, and I ended up sending it in to CGC for the John Romita Jr. signing, so he signed and sketched it.
That's
Nice.
wonderful. All of these covers are classic so far.
Great choices.
Yeah.
I mean, that middle one, the Spider-Man one, that was on my list when I was picking new covers, but I went, I was like, somebody else is going to pick that. So, there's so many great Spider-Man covers. I was like, someone else is going to pick that. So I'm going to grab something else.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All right, let's keep this train a rolling. We're going to go with mine next. And Gary, we will save the best for last, sir.
All right.
All right. So this is what I got here. I have, we'll start right in the center. Web of Spider-Man #1. The
best.
Yes.
Great one.
This is one of my favorite covers. I absolutely adore this cover. This is Spider-Man at that time in the black suit, and it looks so dangerous and just so menacing to a point. But for a new title that did not live up to expectations, this cover is, I think, one of the best things to come out of Web of Spider-Man.
Charles Vess is from Roanoke, Virginia area. He's an interesting cat. I met him a few times, and that cover is so cool. And he also did another great Hobgoblin cover where Hobgoblin's got Spidey by the arm. He's on the ground. And he's lifting his arm up and the flames are behind him. That is an amazing Spidey cover too.
Oh, yeah. But Pam, I got the first Hobgoblin off the stand when I was a kid. Somehow, even then, it was a special one. 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. But moving over to the left, Amazing 122. That cover on its own, I chose for how iconic it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never read Spider-Man, you need to start at 121 and just read 121 and 122. This is the aftermath of that, but everything in here is so fantastic, and it's one of my favorite covers. I got it hanging up on my wall on those particle board things that Marvel put out years ago. And just the words on here, everything that's being said. Heads up, wall crawler. First I finished off Gwen Stacy, and now it's your turn. And what does Spider-Man say? Wrong, Goblin. You murdered the only girl I'll ever love. And today's the day you're going to die. Oh my God. This is just, it's Marvel doesn't do it like this anymore. And what did you say, Gary? Like DC was the king of images without words.
Right. A lot of their covers were, especially with the horror covers, they didn't put words up. They let the image speak for itself. But that's the case where the words really are important. And
on top of the Brooklyn Bridge and all of that stuff. There's so much going on there, and it is such an important moment in Spider-Man's life as a character. And then the last book, I have talked about that book a million different times, and I will talk about it a million more. Gary, this is one of my Genesis books.
Yep.
Bagley art?
It is Bagley art. It's the first Bagley art as the regular interior artist for Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing 351. I absolutely love it. Everything about this cover screams 90s and awesome. And me as a kid, just not waiting to dive into this book. It's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, those are what I have. Gary, thanks. Gary, let's go ahead and go with yours.
All right. I am very validated in what I chose now. because I wanted to go old school because I figured you guys would go more new school. So,
And point of reference, we have not had a single shared cover yet.
yes. So
Element 100 was one of the ones that was on my final list. And you're right. The only way that you could say we had the same covers is that I had Web of Spider-Man #1 on the first time we did this.
Yeah.
You have to go to the Wayback Machine for that.
Yeah. All right. So what you're seeing is a triple play from the great John Romita Sr. in front of you. The one on the far left is the Marvel Treasury. So that was a much larger than comic size book. That's Treasury Edition book. That was the first Treasury. That was from 1974. That is simple and goddamn, it is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It is just perfect. In the center of the web, Spider-Man crouched down like that, the logo. I just think it's magnificent. I own this Treasury in really nice shape, and it is just a beautiful book to have in your collection. So I just, again, it's simple, but it is just flat out perfect.
That's
so
wonderful.
Oh, absolutely. The one in the center is Spider-Man Amazing #40. Romita took over on Spidey 39, which was a really cool cover in itself, where the Goblin has got Peter unmasked and he's got a rope around, and Peter is hanging from the Goblin glider as they're flying through the air. Very iconic cover. This was really good. In this one, Spidey beats his ass. And, the end of the Green Goblin, I just love it. He's triumphant. He's standing over top of him. The flames are, going all around. You can see the glider, in the flames there. The glider is turned on. It's almost upside down. And then I also love that you still see the webbing between Spidey's arms.
Yeah.
So I just love that whole image. That is, I just think that's a magnificent John Romita cover. And then Spider-Man 100. That is just so cool. It's a classic design of him crawling. It's an anniversary issue, but all the great work on all the great characters behind him, I think, is just amazing. And that kind of negative,
the negative space.
Yeah, kind of like a negative space, or like a photo negative look to it, that I just think is magnificent. And the drawing on that, I mean, he spent a lot of time drawing that. And you can look at each face and each character and just go, oh, that is so cool. So I really, really love what he did on Spidey 100. So and again, I'm really validated that I went old school, and because I figured you guys would go newer schools. So I'm very happy that I went with those choices.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, those covers that have been shown tonight are every Spider-Man adjective that you can think of. Great choices, guys. That's absolutely fantastic. But
every cover you've shown, I own every one.
Oh, that's true.
Hey, can we ask this question too? When they designed Norman Osborn, what the hell were they thinking with his hair? Like, what was that hair?
The hair
and Harry, it was inherited too, because Harry ended up with it.
Yeah, it like
it's a hairy problem.
Kind of thing. Like they need to have, whenever they introduce Norman Osborn into the current MCU, they need to have his hair be like what it was in
look exactly
in the
like
comic,
that,
because I want to see what it would look like in real life and how stupid it would look. I can't imagine it would look good.
Oh my god.
Well, Harry, little Normie has been spared that fate, it seems.
My lord.
So
all right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and move on to the next awesome segment, and that is recommended readings. And once again, we are going to start off with Sal's, and we will go over that. Gentlemen, if you want to chime in on these particular stories, with the exception of Craven's Last Hunt, go ahead. Number one, Sal's got is Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut. Anybody want to give a synopsis and why that is an awesome pick?
Because he's the juggernaut, bitch.
Yep, and it's 2 issues. I think it was Dan, wasn't it Spidey 229 and 230?
229 and 230.
Spider-Man has no chance against the Juggernaut, and yet maybe somehow he does. It's pretty awesome.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool the way that he ended up that he ended up beating him in the end.
Well, there you
Not
go.
with a Juggernaut, but
What are the
And
issue
Juggernaut
numbers
was
again?
not pleased.
no.
229
No,
and
he was
230 of ASM. Yeah.
228 through 230.
No, 229.
No, 229.
It was only 2
Oh,
issues.
gotcha. There you go.
I think Madam Web was involved with it too.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
Sal's second choice is Craven's Last Hunt. That will be talked about at length later on because that's on another list. So we'll skip over that. And then the death of Jean DeWolf. Is that on anybody else's list?
Yeah.
Okay, then we will pass over that as well. And we will move right along to mine. So there you go. First one, Craven's Last Hunt. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are brand new to Spider-Man, or if you are a seasoned fan of Spider-Man, go read that or read it again. This, in my opinion, is one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever told. And like you said,
Yep.
Dan, it encompassed the three main titles that were out at the time: Amazing, Spectacular, and Web. And you already saw the Web of Spider-Man cover that had to do with Craven's Last Hunt in the top covers. Guys, this story is fantastic. It is Craven, the hunter, going after Spider-Man, and the entire 6 issues that unfold with this. Is it 6 or is it 9 issues? I think it's 6.
It's 6 issues. And
6,
it's funny
yeah.
because it was not originally conceived to be a Spider-Man story. It got turned down. It got turned down a couple times when DeMatteis proposed it for other characters, and then he would tinker with it, propose it again for someone else, and we get turned down, and eventually tinkered with it, proposed it for Spider-Man, and they said, "Yeah, let's do it."
And if you want to deep dive into that, Dan did an interview with DeMatteis too that you can check out right here on the Codex station, and it's a great interview.
Yeah, but we talked about this one.
Yeah, but the things that happen with Spider-Man and Craven in this issue, and the shocking ending, make this one of the greatest Spider-Man stories ever told. Down at the bottom, Amazing Spider-Man 121 and 122. We talked about that with the cover that I had for 122. That's the death of Gwen Stacy. That is a major, probably one of the biggest parts of Spider-Man's entire history. Bear with me 1 second. I got a cough coming in that I do not want to be there right now. But hang on. But that right there, the death of Gwen Stacy, the entire 2 issues changed the course of Spider-Man forever. And it is absolutely devastating, shocking, awe-inspiring. Everything that happened in it. Gary, you went over parts of it earlier in the episode. It's wonderful, guys. If you haven't read it, or if you've read it before, go read it again. And then finally, the round robin storyline, which takes place in Amazing Spider-Man 353 and goes for 8 issues, I believe. That I chose because that was the first major story that Bagley did as the artist for Spider-Man. And it's got Night Thrasher, Punisher, Darkhawk, Moon Knight, Nova, and Moon Knight's former partner.
Frenchie?
No, not Frenchie. I can't remember his name, though. The Midnight Man or something like that. But that whole 8-issue series, it's modern Spider-Man, at least in the 90s. It's absolutely fantastic, and it is well worth the read.
It was very 90s, and like, hey, let's advertise the hell out of having all these different characters in here.
Oh, it was a team-up book all the way.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and move on to yours, Dan. What do you got there for recommended reading?
So real quick, my recommended reading the first time was Spider-Man versus Venom, which was a trade paperback I have. That's the collected Spider-Man Venom that McFarlane did. I also had Spider-Man Wolverine, because that was one that I loved as a kid, and it had some significant stuff in it. It had Spider-Man in the red and blue and the black costume, had Wolverine in the yellow and the brown costume, had a great fight between them. The woman that Spider-Man accidentally killed, the Ned Leeds death, which really kind of screwed up what they were going to do with that later. But so I had that one, and then I had I didn't write down the exact issue. I'm sure Gary knows off the top of his head. The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man.
328 maybe.
Yeah, which is just it's just fantastic. And there's been a lot of memes done about it since then, but it's a fantastic story. So, and I knew that like Kraven's Last Hunt and some of the other ones would get picked. So I tried to pick some good, but not as as big ones. So
right.
Spider-Man Blue, that is a mini series that is done by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, where they would do all of these, they would do all these mini series.
Hulk Gray, Captain America, red
white,
and white.
I think.
Yeah, Captain America white, Daredevil yellow.
Yeah, so they did a bunch of those, and I like Jeff Loeb as a writer for the most part. To be honest, I've never really liked Tim Sale's artwork that much, but his artwork on here is very good.
Spider-Man Blue is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories.
Yeah, that one actually was on my short list for this list tonight.
Yeah, and it tells some of the story of with him and Gwen, and he met Mary Jane, and just retells some of his earlier days, but expands on some more. And like I said, even though I don't like Tim Sale's artwork, for the most part in this, it was very good, and it harkened back to that John Romita old school Spider-Man style. So that is that's a really good one to read. Like Sal, I had The Death of Jean DeWolf. So that was a character who was a police detective that actually was a big fan of Spider-Man, one of the only police officers that would work, that would not like try and get rid of him. That would be like, come help us. And when she was killed, and it is issues Spectacular Spider-Man 107 to 110. I know. And it's a good story. This Spider-Man, as always, is not unfamiliar to losing people that are close to him, but he he gets involved with trying to help solve the case, and it's this character, the Sin Eater, that killed her and has started killing other people. And Daredevil's in this story, and it's a great Spider-Man Daredevil team up. And this is actually the story where Spider-Man and Daredevil learn each other's secret identities as well.
Ooh, interesting.
This is it's the first time they did that, and you see Spider-Man really kind of be a little, not unhinged is the right word, but start to be a little bit more brutal, when the person, again, which he always kind of, the only thing that really pushes him to that point is when someone very close to him is killed, or, in the case of Aunt May, almost killed. So it's a really good read. And it was, it was Peter David that wrote it, and, was the start of him, like some of the first Spider-Man stuff he wrote.
Okay.
And then I have Amazing Fantasy 1000, which just came out about a year or two ago. And it's just a oversized issue that has a bunch of short Spider-Man stories in it. Some of them are better than others, like you'll get in any kind of book like that. The first one is a pretty good one that, has Spider-Man catching this guy, as a criminal, and he goes to jail, and he gets out and he catches him again. And then it gets to be this thing over the years where he's like, you again. And it's like Spidey just kind of trying to talk to him, be like, dude, you got to turn your life around. But the one that's the best in there, and I forget who wrote it. I should have looked it up before this, but it is Spider-Man when he is older and still with Mary Jane and older, like retirement age. And he is on his way to an anniversary dinner with her, but he just can't help himself when he sees a crime and he stops to solve, even though he tells her, like, I promise I'm straight there, nothing like that. And he stops to stop this crime, this person getting mugged. And, he's older, not as fast as he was. He ends up getting shot and almost dying, and he's in the hospital. And even though it's only a few pages, I thought that, like, really did a great job of showing the connection that Spider-Man has with the community and with just the normal average people. Because, like we've talked about before, that's what Spider-Man is. He's the everyman.
Yeah.
And, when he's in the ambulance and and the ambulance is taking him to the hospital, there's the older paramedic that's on there, and the younger one, is going to, is cutting off his costume. Yes, thank you, Bougie. Is cutting off his costume and goes for the mask, and the older one stops him. He's like, no. He goes, what? He's like, no, we don't take. He's like, we don't do that. He's like, tell him, like, this isn't the first time he's come in. Like, we don't take his mask off. He's him. And then when he's in the hospital, and they're doing surgery and all this, they're like, no, we're not taking his mask off. Like, that's the level of respect that they have for him. And then the news gets out about it, and then there's this epically long line of people that are just there, that just show up to the hospital, that are just coming in his room just to pay their respects to Spider-Man. And it's all like, you saved me, or you saved my husband or my son, or whatever. And I just thought that was a really fantastic story, a very touching story about what he means to all these people. Because at this point, like I said, he's older, so he would have been Spider-Man at this point for like 40 years, 50 years. And Mary Jane, is in the line, and then goes in there to talk to him. And, they're kind of like, all right, they get that she's someone special to him, not just a random person. And they're like, all right, kind of keep everyone away for a while. And then she starts chastising him, and he gets up at one point, and he hears this crime outside, and he, like, outside the hospital window, and, like, goes out there with, like, his Spider-Man mask on and his, like, hospital gown and stuff to fight this, to stop this, this mugging or something. And she's like, damn it, why don't you learn? Spider-Man too, that, as much as he means so much to all these people, he can't see a crime and not let it,
right, and
not do what he can to stop it, no matter what, no matter what it's going to cost him. If he sees something happen, he has to step up and stop it.
He has to do something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's some of the stories in that one are better than others, but that one, that story in particular is 100% worth buying the issue.
Wow, that's wonderful. All right, Greg, what do you got, man? Recommended reading.
All right, here we go. So this first one was mentioned earlier, actually, the Amazing Spider-Man 248. There was a backup story that was called The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I'm finding it difficult to talk about this issue without spoiling it. I don't know if I should or not, but
no, go for it.
Okay, well, it is a story about Spider-Man who visits a young kid. His name's Tim Harrison, and he finds out that Tim's been basically collecting, like, news articles and any kind of, if this is, the issue was written in the 80s, so there's no internet. So he's got like a scrapbook of things written down and everything. Well, the backup story goes on, and they share stories about each other's life, and Spider-Man shares stories about his life as a superhero. And then at the very end, Spider-Man's about to leave, and Tim asked him to reveal his identity, which was kind of a shocking moment.
Yeah.
Well, Spider-Man turns around and he actually reveals his identity and tells him who he is. And you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he just told a kid, whatever. But then you see Spider-Man leave, and he's swinging away from a cancer clinic, and you realize that Tim is on his way out. It was a really, really good story, really surprisingly emotional kind of story.
Wow.
And they actually adapted that story for one of the episodes of the Spider-Man cartoon, believe it or not,
Yeah.
in the 90s.
Really?
And I think that they changed the boy to a girl in the TV show,
Yeah.
but it ends the same way, and it shows him swinging away, and she's in like
Wow.
a leukemia clinic.
Wow.
Mhm.
And when I was researching this book, I saw a little tidbit that said then the 1991 Marvel Holiday Special, which if you know that cover, I think it's a white cover with Santa Claus on the front.
I have that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too. Actually, I bought it off a literal newsstand when I was a
Yeah.
kid. But they actually there's a spot in that book. There's a story called A Spider-Man Carol in which Spider-Man meets Tim's brother Joey.
Oh.
And I don't know what the interaction is. That's the little snippet I saw, and I didn't have time to actually look up that book because I've got it in my collection. But I'll have to look that up and take a gander at it just to see
Wow.
what that interaction was. But that is a great story if you can find it. I think it's been reprinted in most of the quote best of Spider-Man books.
Right. Okay. Right on.
Yeah, that, and like I said, that was on the first time we did this. That was on my
Mhm.
must reads.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Right.
and when we flip back over to the main camera, Tim, I can show you the covers to these too because I brought them out just in case. I didn't
Yeah.
show covers.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
this-
the beginning of the story, it's just like, oh, it's Spider-Man fighting Thunderball, and
Yeah, it's Thunderball.
whatever.
Yeah. Then the second one on the list is Peter Parker Spider-Man number 33. This was written in the mid 2000s by Paul Jenkins, and he wrote it was a single story, self-contained, and it takes place on the anniversary of Uncle Ben's death, and it kind of shows how he handles it.
Mhm.
Well, basically, I'm a huge baseball fan, and this story is called Maybe Next Year. And it reminisces Peter's goes to a Mets game because he's a big Mets guy on the anniversary of Uncle Ben's death to kind of think about him. And it flashes back to Peter's childhood when Uncle Ben would take him to the Mets games, and they would always lose. The Mets just got hammered over and over and over until one day they finally win, and he really he understands that's ironically what we were talking about an hour ago.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to get beat up a lot in life, but you have to win at some
Yeah.
point if you keep at it. And it's a really, really touching story, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's lost a parent or lost someone that's close as a parent.
Mhm.
And it's really worth reading. It's worth reading very slowly and kind of taking it all in because it's a tearjerker. I went with something
Snoop.
a little less than like an action movie or action book or something like that.
Yeah.
That
I
Uncle Ben's
vaguely
Rice.
remember that book, and I remember it being very poignant.
Yeah.
It was really good. And I will give just an honorable mention from Paul Jenkins also. He also wrote a book or a single issue called The Final Curtain, which was the last issue of Spectacular Spider-Man Volume 2, I believe. It's number 27.
Ooh, okay.
And it's really good too, where he thinks back on his life with Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane and things like that.
Mm.
But and then the final one here is the one I was alluding to earlier.
Yeah.
Very underrated book from the 80s,
Yeah.
and it's got a lot of key moments in it. It's a Spider-Man versus Wolverine. And a few of those key moments this is where Wolverine learns Spider-Man's identity because he smells him when he's out of costume. And he says, he meets Peter Parker out of costume, and he says, I know who you are, you're Spider-Man, because he smelled him.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or
That's kinda
not.
what it was with Daredevil and Spider-Man. Daredevil met Peter and recognized his heartbeat.
Oh, I never thought about that, but yeah, that would make sense. And
Well,
then,
it's really disturbing though, because Wolverine, when he smells people, he sniffs their butts.
he did. That was funny, yeah. The panel says censored in there for some reason.
Oh my God.
Well, he is a short guy, so he's about that height level.
Yeah, there you go.
Thankfully, he was standing behind him, though.
Just bring that rear right on over here.
So,
Yep.
also in this book, believe it or not, they kill off Ned Leeds off screen. Like he's not shown not shown dying. He is shown dead. It's very strange.
Wow.
I do a chair.
And then let's see. The other big thing in this book, and it actually was such a major moment that they made a what if about an alternate ending, is Spider-Man and Wolverine actually fight, as I talked about earlier, full power. Spider-Man accidentally kills someone in this book. He punches Wolverine with everything he has. This other character jumps in front, which was actually a character named Charlemagne, who is revealed later to be a ex-lover of Wolverine. And Spider-Man punches her full strength. And now she was probably going to die anyway because Wolverine's claws had already took a big piece out of her.
Oh, wow.
But it was such a traumatic event for Peter that they actually made a what if book called, I think they flipped the title, like instead of Spider-Man versus Wolverine, it was Wolverine versus Spider-Man or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
To where what would have happened if he couldn't live with the guilt kind of like thing.
Oh, wow.
It was really good. I remember the what if, it didn't quite go the direction I kind of hoped it would, but
Yeah.
just the fact that they still count that book in canon and whatnot is Peter actually it basically killed someone. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really, really good issue. It was pretty thick too. It's like a
Well, I mean,
48 pager or something like that.
yeah, that event still carries on, right? Like I think when Devil's Reign was getting ready to happen, didn't Daredevil throw that in Peter's face? Like, don't talk to me about blood on my hands when you've got it too.
Oh, well, I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I guess so,
something,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Well, those are my 3 picks, and if I had to recommend one out of those, I would go honestly with Peter Parker, Spider-Man number 33, just because I don't ever hear anyone talk about that book, and it is so good.
Yeah. All right.
You know, and that Spider-Man Wolverine one that screwed up their plans too, because Ned Leeds was going to be the one that they were going to reveal was Hobgoblin, and they just kind of, if what I read was correct, they just kind of did this book and didn't really consult with the other Spider-Man writers, and when it came out, they were like, "Shit, what do we do now?" And that's when they ended up, it screwed up the Hobgoblin story, and that's when they ended up doing like all the different stuff with Hobgoblin and with the Rose, and like it's this guy, no, it's this guy, no, it's this guy, and
wow,
yeah, it was all because of that.
Communication is key, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gary, you have the honor of rounding this out. What do you have for recommended reading, good sir?
Nothing that hadn't been talked about. So, Craven's Last Hunt, get it. As much as we've talked about Spider-Man in there, it's named after Craven, and the characterization they do on Craven in this is pretty amazing, and his motivations and why he does what he does. So I think that's just, like I said, we talk about Spidey's reaction, but Craven himself is pretty interesting in this book.
Yeah.
ASM 121, 122, written by Jerry Conway. And that was a big deal when he killed Gwen Stacy in those 2 books. So, Jerry Conway and Gil Kane and Tony Mortello did the art with some inking by John Romita in that also. So those were, just pivotal Spider-Man stories that still resonate to this day. And Craven's Last Hunt, I want to again mention J.M. DeMatteis, Mike Zeck, and Bob McLeod on that. Spider-Man Blue. I'll say a little bit about that. That is by Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale, and unlike Dan, I do always like Tim Sale's art. I really do. I know it's very stylized, but I love it, especially on Batman. But Spider-Man Blue, it's a good book to read after you've read 121 and 122 of ASM, because it deals with the loss of Gwen, and it explains a little bit about the relationship between between Peter and Mary Jane after that tragedy, and it is really just full of pathos and mourning. And blue, blue in this, I take the blue to mean sadness. It's a book about mourning and getting over the loss of someone you love so much. And I just think it's just a very wonderful piece of art and literature that moves you tremendously.
Those that have read Spider-Man Blue, I think the general consensus is the same, that this is one of the most beautiful Spider-Man stories ever written.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And full of humanity, which again is what we love about the character, is the humanity. So,
and I'll tell you this, about Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale and those series. You guys you're probably very familiar with his Superman, that For All Seasons.
Oh yeah,
man, when those 2 guys are clicking on all cylinders, you get stuff like that, and you get Long Halloween. I mean, you get some just monster stuff.
And what a loss of Tim Sale! What a talent!
Yeah, that was rough.
Well,
That
what was it?
rough.
Well, first off, okay, gentlemen, these covers or these recommended readings are absolutely fantastic. Wonderful choices, and I love. Yep, there's that. I love when our recommended readings kind of bleed
Yep.
together because
There we go.
That's
to
correct.
me
Yeah.
that tells me. Yep, there you go.
Yep.
That tells me that we love these stories so much. We want to each of them share our own opinions on them, and I enjoy that. And but we were talking like when I was reading the Death Blow hardcover that I have. Tim Sale did a lot of the interior for that
Yeah.
too, and we had no idea about that.
And I love, and just as an honorable mention, that FF 588 that I read to you, that was just it was just an 8-page story, but that Hickman, who has a pretty good handle on the Spider-Man character with what he's doing now. So with the Unlimited. So
all right, well,
there's your real quick. There's your kid that collects Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah. And look through your dollar bins for this one. This is the Peter Parker 33.
Oh, right.
And he's like sitting in a crowd. It's like a baseball game.
Bunch of good stories. I'm sold on 1,000. Got to check it out.
Yeah, this one's going to be in a dollar bin somewhere probably, but it is absolutely worth $1.
And this one, this is the first printing of it, but this isn't the one I had when I was a kid. They did a second printing of it that actually has, Mark Bright did the artwork on this, and the artwork is spectacular. I grew up, as a fan of Mark Bright from his work on G.I. Joe, but his artwork in this is great. And the one I had when I was a kid was like more of a square bound.
Yeah.
And it had this really fantastic cover of Spider-Man fighting Wolverine, different than this, where like Spider-Man and Wolverine are much bigger on the cover.
Yeah.
And but either way you find it's the same story, and it's great.
Right on. Well, we've got one more segment before we can put this episode to rest, and that's best writer and artist. Who we choose. Greg, go ahead and take that away, man. Who would you like to see write Spider-Man and draw Spider-Man, or who do you think are the best in their respective categories?
Well, I'll tell you who. I mean, this is almost like a broken record at this point. I would love to see McFarlane come back and just say, you know what, I love Marvel again, and that's who made me, and let's do it. And just nothing but pencils and inks from Todd McFarlane. I mean, that would be
writing.
Well, actually, I'll say something about his Spider-Man run. The first, 15 issues with I think there was a break in there at the very end somewhere, but
yeah,
there was another friend of mine named Fred, and we were talking about it. Or, excuse me, I was listening to him talk about it on a podcast, and he said, I would put up an argument that was Spider-Man's first horror book, and I thought, that's pretty true. I didn't think about it until he kind of said it, and I was like, oh. Yeah, that's right. There was like 15 issues of horror Spider-Man. But no, that's who I would like to see is McFarlane come back, and why not have him do the writing too? Because as a kid, I loved those Spider-Man books he did.
Let him do 6 to 8 issues and go to town.
Why not?
Well, McFarlane's the reason that they put him back in the red and blue suit too. Because when he started drawing, he's like, I don't want to draw this black suit. Like, I want to draw the red and blue one, and he kind of. They put him back in that suit because that's what he wanted to draw.
He did 3 issues of the black suit, and then that was it.
Yep. Well, technically, he did the Morbius issue. He was in the black suit for one issue because he homaged his own cover. I think he was probably the first guy that homaged his own cover.
Yeah.
And then he's done it since. He did it with Spawn. And
yeah.
But no, that would be my dream casting is just have McFarlane come back and hit it. That'd be
okay.
Double duty.
Yeah.
Gary, what about you, man? Best writer and artist. What do you got?
All right. Well, you know what? There is no Spider-Man without Stan Lee. Stan Lee is the one that gave us this character that is flawed. That is every man. That is us. That it was a, picked on kid that was a nerd, was not popular. So he gave the world this, and most of the superheroes too at the time were adults. This was a kid. He was a teenager. So the people that were reading this book really identified with it. But Stan is the one that gave us this. And Stan, with Ditko, was the architect of all these great villains that came up in the Spider-Man mythos. And that, so what that great tapestry that has been woven into this large giant piece of art that it is now. It started with Stan, so I've got to give Stan the credit for that. Now, as far as art goes, as much as I appreciate Ditko and as much as I love the contributions that Ditko did, and the creation, the look of so many of these villains, the book really, in my mind, took off starting at issue 39. There, if you looked at the covers I chose, they were all one guy, and it was John Romita Sr. He gave the character a look to it that was more smooth, and what I think more importantly, he gave Peter Parker a look where he was kind of a handsome individual. Romita came from doing romance books for DC.
Yeah.
He had been doing a lot of romance work. So Peter Parker was handsome. When Mary Jane's face was finally revealed, because they had hit her, when they had her in the when Ditko introduced her in the shadows behind a flower, like that. When they finally put it, she was beautiful. She was gorgeous. And that. So think about that great panel. Face it, Tiger. You've hit the jackpot. Think if Ditko had drawn that, wouldn't have been anywhere near as effective as what you saw from Jazzy John Romita. Yeah. So I think Romita gave him, made him, just a more pleasing character to look at, not just Spider-Man, but the old. Sure did. I love that. Snoop, Swag. That is exactly what it was. All the characters, and Romita was no slouch on designs either. He was co-creator of the Rhino and the villains that came after that, the Kingpin. So, it was in Romita's run where Spider-Man became just huge, this global icon. And like I said, as much as I appreciate Ditko and I respect Ditko, I just think it was Romita that really fleshed out that character and gave it such a distinctive look. And he was on that book for a long time, many years. He was on that book pretty much all the way till about issue 100 or so. Then he would come back and do a lot of covers.
He was pulling double duty on Daredevil and Spider-Man until he went to Spider-Man full time. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And he got the gig because he was on Daredevil, and he had done so good, but he had done such a great job. But for me, it's Stan Lee and it's John Romita Sr. I think that is the man that gave him the distinct look. That's not saying the guys after didn't do a great job. They have, but I just like to, a lot of times I like to go back a little further and get where these characters were molded and go with those guys. And that's what I did on that. Yeah, you did that. Quiet Swagger. Snoop. Yeah. Chris, you're right, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, your comment hit it right on the head. Absolutely. I wish they would have put Peter and MJ together and married. Ultimate Spider-Man is popular because they are together with kids. 110%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, look at Ultimate Spider-Man is on what, 5 or 6 printings of number 1.
Still going.
And Dan has every copy of every printing so far.
Yeah, so do I.
Nice. I've got the first. I think I've got the first 3 or 4, but I think after that I trailed off.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and go with mine, and then Dan, you have the pleasure of rounding us out and finishing off the episode. But Gary, right off the bat, John Romita Sr. is the only choice for me for artwork. I love Bagley. I love McFarlane. I love Larson. All the guys, Campbell, everybody that's been doing them from then to now. But my favorite visual representation, the image that immediately comes to mind is Romita Sr.
I agree.
He made Spider-Man look the way that he does, and that is now the template that is used forward. Like with what Ditko did, gasped him. With what Ditko did, obviously without Ditko, we would not have the way Spider-Man looks. There's no denying that. And
that's right.
And the amount of work that Ditko put into that character is unbelievable. He gave him the look. He built the foundations of the house. When Romita Sr. came in, he built upon that and modernized and made him look so much more spectacular.
He did.
Yeah, and it was great. As far as a writer goes, Stan Lee, obviously, I mean, you cannot go wrong with that choice. But if I were to pick somebody that hasn't written Spider-Man or that I would like to see do Spider-Man, I think that'd be Scott Snyder. I'd like to see Snyder tackle Spider-Man with Romita Sr. doing the artwork and just letting him go to town. I think that would make for an interesting story.
You know, Tim, I didn't think about. I was thinking about people who've done Spider-Man before, but
Yeah.
like my wife and I are huge James Tynion fans. And
Oh.
that would be like, what would he do if he had Spider-Man for like a 12-issue maxi series? Or
Make
something?
it a incredibly horror-filled
Probably,
book,
yeah.
right?
Listen, Joe just said, yeah, Ross Andrew, don't sleep on him.
Yeah.
He came on, I guess, in like the 120s or 30s, and he had a long run. He
After
was
Gil
very,
King.
right. Very classic too. And then Bougie had said earlier, for an old-time Spider-Man fan, is Ultimate something he should pick up? Yeah, you're damn right it is.
Ross's
Pick it
artwork.
up.
He was there through most of the 70s, if I remember right. Like that was a lot of books that I was picking up as back issues. So that's the first,
And I think Ross drew a lot of it in the style of Romita too.
Yeah, exactly.
He drew it in that style, so it was a nice continuation. Of that.
Yeah. All right, Dan, writer and artist. What do you got, buddy?
So the first time we did this for writer, I picked Tom DeFalco because when I started looking back through my long box of Spider-Man books, and I was seeing all the issues. I was seeing all of the
I got you, Dan. You go ahead and talk, man.
All of the Spider-Man books that I picked up when I was growing up at a back issue bins, that I look back fondly on. I was like, yep, Tom DeFalco. It was Tom DeFalco that wrote them. So that's who I picked originally. Picking a new one this time, I'm going to pick David Michelini.
He was good.
Great choice.
Dan Slott, is a more recent one.
Dan Slott's very. I love his Red Goblin run.
Yeah, I haven't. Like I said, I didn't read, when he was on Amazing because
Brand New Day
was gone from that. But I've read a little bit of it since he's done the self-titled book, and I think he's doing the Superior Spider-Man book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's good. He gets Peter with the making it a fun book to read.
Yeah,
but I haven't read enough of it. But David Michelini, I read a ton of it. That's when DeFalco was writing the stuff when the older books I was picking up before I started reading new ones. Michelini was the one that was writing it. That was the current writer when I started. Straczynski was a good one too.
Joe says Straczynski's not his favorite. Babylon 5 is righteous, but not his Spider-Man.
If you want good Straczynski, read the 12.
Straczynski's run was much darker than other stuff. Not that it was bad; it was good, but like I said. So DeFalco wrote the stuff I liked, the old stuff I liked as a kid. Michelini was the one that was writing it when I started buying new issues. For the artist I originally had, I had picked Mark Bagley because, again, he's drawn it so much over the past several,
he is the iconic modern artist.
Yeah, I mean, he's, between Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, self-titled Spider-Man, all this stuff. Like,
all I have to do is reach over here and I can grab a Bagley Spider-Man issue.
I mean, I feel like you could blindfold him and tell him to draw a Spider-Man issue and he'd be like, okay.
Fun.
But since I had to pick a new artist for this time, it was almost McFarlane, but ultimately I had to go with John Romita Sr. Because, I mean, even when you look at like T-shirts that are coming out now in 2024, new shirts, it's John Romita's Spider-Man that's on them. Like that's a lot of the Spider-Man imagery that I saw growing up on shirts, on puffy stickers,
everything.
And the comics too. And and the original art that was in the comics was brilliant. And like it's that classic, that classic Spider-Man. And if I were to pick an artist I'd like to see do it, it's actually someone that started drawing him a little bit recently, in Todd Nauck. I think his style fits Spider-Man very well.
My phone is blowing up by people that did not expect me to say Ramita instead of Bagley. So sorry, guys.
Is that Wes?
Yes. Well, all right, gentlemen.
I was gonna say, what he says here, over 100, and
Yeah.
and the amount of issues that Bagley and Bendis did on that broke the record that was previously held by Stan Lee and Kirby for the
Yeah.
longest continuous run without interruption on Fantastic Four, and Bendis and Bagley broke that streak on Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, one story I don't think that I just thought of that I remembered being poignant, and it's been years since I've read it, but there was a post 9/11 Spider-Man book that I think was pretty moving and pretty amazing too.
Number 36, I believe.
Yeah, I'm vague
The black
on the
cover.
black cover.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm vague on the details, but I remember that being a
We
really
have
good
got an episode of it in Decoding Panels, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out dramatic reading of Amazing 36.
See, Codex Station has got you covered.
That's right. All right, gentlemen, have to always mention the king. Yes, you can't have a conversation about comic books without talking.
Oh, you know what? With covers, okay. The other one that I did not pick was, of course, the Kirby cover of Amazing Fantasy 15, which is a great cover that started the whole Spider-Man, launch, because that cover helped sell that book out. That great cover. And
looking at it right now.
Kirby, I got one. Kirby was not the original artist. I've seen the original work that Ditko drew that cover.
Wasn't it just like not up to par for
what? Not up to par. It was a little bit different perspective. The same kind of thing. He was swinging with a guy, and there were buildings, but it was just a bit of a different perspective. And they went with Kirby, and that Kirby cover was much more dynamic, and that's what helped sell that book out. So kind of interesting on that. But a lot of credit has to be given for Kirby. As far as an iconic cover. I didn't choose it, but I figured we would mention it. And I forgot to mention it, but somebody brought up the King. We got to talk about the King because the King introduced Spider-Man to the world with that cover.
Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is high time we go web swinging into the night ourselves, because ladies and gentlemen, this will not be the last time that we talk Spider-Man. We will revisit him again down the road in the future. You can guarantee it.
3.0?
3.0, absolutely. But this is the first time that we've revisited characters that these guys have done before in earlier episodes of Comic Character of the Week, and we're going to do more. So let us know on the community tab or right here in the comments section what characters you want to see us do on Comic Character of the Week. But first and foremost, Greg, let me thank you very much for toughing it out.
Thank you.
Almost 2.5 hours, man.
It was fun. A lot of fun.
It was amazing, and I'm very glad that you accepted our invite to come on here and have a good time with us.
Except for Tim, we behaved really well tonight.
Yeah,
that's very true.
I'm very disappointed in you, Tim. I mean, I expected so much better. All I heard was F-bomb after F-bomb.
Right, I took all y'all.
You know what you have to do? Like Jamie said, go back and edit it. If you put a sound effect over every time you drop the F-bomb, you should take the thwip sound effect from the animated series and put that over top of it.
Go ahead and throw Joe's comment back up there real quick. Joe says, glad to catch you guys. You continue to be the nicest bunch of super villains I've ever met. Tonight, chat. Tomorrow, the world. You fucking better believe it.
Oh, man, he did it again.
He just took mine that time. Now
my God.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys, we're going to get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's episode. It has been amazing. It has been spectacular. And above all, it has been sensational because you, the viewer, are here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, Greg is on Instagram. Greg, where can people find you, man?
Lithograph_comics on Instagram.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Right there it is, at Lithograph_comics. Go check his content out. You will not be disappointed.
He taught me what underscore means. I had no idea, and then now I see it. Now
there
I
you
know.
go. And also, ladies and gentlemen, Gary's going to tell you what we want to do with socials.
Oh man, at the Codex station, all the hosts you see, we have all the socials, and we would like nothing better than to give them to you.
There you go. At the
Mhm.
Codex Station, ladies and gentlemen, your favorite social media platforms, and where we're live streaming right now. Please, the best way to support this channel is to hit the like, share, subscribe, and follow, so that way we can continue to do the content that we love to
Mhm.
bring to you all the time, every time. And don't forget, memberships and super chats are always available on all live shows, and memberships whenever you want to, if you want to support the channel in a financial way. It is never expected, but it is always appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. And one last thing, I know it's been a long night. I know we've gone 2.5 hours, but by God, your stamina has held up through all of it, and we are so proud of you. And you need a clean t-shirt to wear after all this sweat. Boom. Good night, all.
Good night, Pam.
Absolutely, Pam. Lady, oh, sorry about that, Dan. Go ahead and throw that comment up real quick.
What'd Snoop say?
I always need a shower and a smoke after the show. You better believe it. And what you need to do, now that your shirt is all sweaty and you're tired, you need a good clean shirt to sleep in. Head over to thecodexstation.com, ladies and gentlemen, for all your Codex needs. Get some merch, meet the team, and so much more. Once again, thecodexstation.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to get the hell out of here. My name is Tim the Terrible. Bougie is right down there. Time flew by, no jive. Oh,
Thank you for the
Saturday's going to be even better. So, oh, one more thing. Lettuce Comics. Buddy, it was good to see you here in the chat.
Yep,
He's going to
thank
be
you.
joining us here in a couple of weeks for Comic Character of the Week, and we'll let you know what character that's going to be soon. It's already been chosen, but you got to
Mhm.
stick around so you can see what it is. And be sure to head over to his channel at Lettuce Comics right here on YouTube and give him a subscribe, man. Get him up to 200 subscribers, and check out Mon Comics giveaway, where you can win some awesome stuff by just subscribing to Mon Comics and Lettuce Comics.
That's right.
Awesome. Free stuff is always cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Tim the Terrible. This beautiful man over here is Greg from Lithograph Comics. Down below is the man, Dan the Kelly Art, the road manager for this guy right there, the curator of the Library of Comics, the Ric Flair of comics.
Woo!
Uncle
Woo!
Gary himself, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Codex Station Comic Character of the Week, Spider-Man, and I can't go until I hear two very beautiful words that I always need to hear before I rest my weary head.
Gaping holes.
Thank God. Oh, so amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. We'll see you later. Goodbye. One more time.
Gaping holes.
Thanks. Love ya.